Alright, live, start. This is test run. Okay, so just give me a holler, alright?
What's in here?
No, we do not have a clicker. We have a mouse for you.
How you doing? Nice to meet you. Pete, thanks for doing this. Thanks for taking the time out of your day.
This mouse, you can click on everything. Yeah, there it is.
Okay. And then we will project the deck over here.
Yes, yes.
So I think with the sharpness is a little bit. Was it? Just me? That's the best we got.
Yes, the best we got. We're projecting.
And then do you have version 1.4 here? That's of the deck.
Version 1.4.
No, what he said is 3.3 out of 3.6.
That's Python. Yeah. I'm talking about presentation. PowerPoint.
What version is it? Microsoft Word Office 2010?
This is 2010, and I don't have the PowerPoint. I don't have the PowerPoint on this computer.
I can give you the PowerPoint or send it to you.
Yeah, either one. If you have it on a jump drive, you can just put it in there.
I have a jump drive.
Maybe if you Google
All we have is the PDF one. They have it in my drive. I couldn't find it.
this is unique code that targets
Yeah.
And then they had printed out this morning.
trying to crack. I just don't know what I'm doing.
It's a gift from God.
Have a simple password that I can use, but it's not going to target a website. But it's will target my network. It won't target a network. It just cracks the password.
Do you want a remote onto that computer there?
Remote through my computer too, so that I can control? Well, yes, or I can just copy the deck.
Okay, do you need Python again?
No, we don't
Okay,
need
Python is not
anymore.
necessary again. All right, good.
Yeah, I'll just save the PowerPoint here.
The cybersecurity/hunter login.php, same IP address.
Cybersecurity?
Yeah, /hunter login.
Yeah, look up the new PowerPoint in the classroom. Huh? Look up the new PowerPoint in the classroom.
Yeah, I threw a new one in the Google Classroom for you guys.
It doesn't matter. So, yeah, 1.3 or whatever, it has the latest URLs as update code.
Yes. When he sent me the new one, I just dropped it in the
Ready?
one.
Just keep talking.
Cybersecurity is all one word.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Testing 1, 2. 1, 2, 3.
Version 1.3?
Yeah.
All right, so you're raising up the volume a little bit more. The gain.
The rest of you can still follow along with your PowerPoints or follow along in Google Classroom.
No.
Follow along with
you
your
don't have the
paperwork.
PowerPoint on the projector. I don't have a projector on the computer.
Not teach. We're going to get the PowerPoint on the other computer so that we can continue with this section of the cybersecurity day.
So if you were on your Wi-Fi and you wanted the master password for your router, you could technically use this, but you just have to add lettering, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Good to know.
Yeah, there are. Yeah, there are. There are. Okay. All right. So I will almost start in a bit.
This will change the PowerPoint or the keyboard will.
Okay.
Either one.
Okay.
Put this wherever you see fit. Wish to write anything up there, you can just go ahead.
It's in.
Yeah, fix it.
Sharpness is not.
There you go, he's got it like this.
This is an
now
older
Levittown's watching the live
projector.
stream, right?
What?
Now Levittown's gonna watch the live stream?
Yes.
So yeah, they like
In your PowerPoint, right after it says lunch break, that's where you go up to that point, and then you can watch from here if you want to follow along, or in your handouts.
Do we have a little bit of time left, or we're starting at 1, or like right now?
I think around 1. What time is it now?
10 more minutes.
10 more minutes, okay.
It's unbelievable how precise you have to be. I'm a fast typer, so going this slow is like.
Yeah. And that's why we're suggesting you to type it so that you learn along the way. For those who just copy and paste, they don't get the appreciation of how it actually works.
Thoroughly right there helping you. Come look at something else. We've got more eyes to help you.
No, that's
one color.
the crash is when it says opposed to
No, sure.
All right, how's it look
I'm
now?
pretty sure a lot of people in this field have to smoke cigarettes because of the preciseness. It'll calm you down. It's just so freaking easy.
Yeah, we have the light off just. He wants the light so you can see the screen. That's why. We're shooting on a wall. Do they have at least a paper to follow through?
the cybersecurity before.
Right.
I feel like it's more of an IT.
Right.
So for allergy. Yeah,
There we go. I see you. All right. So, okay. So leave it like that then. Okay.
I don't know your last name. He's like, no. Mr. Shane.
No, it's gonna
Yeah,
be.
but like, sometimes I
You should tell him. Do you know what her real name is? Just put it in the email.
He doesn't send me too many emails.
It's not going to work. That's the wrong site.
Mr. Protect your body.
It's the wrong site.
As
long as it runs, you know you did it right.
Is that one of the
Just take a picture of it.
Everybody, before we begin, we saw the video before. Mr. Surge was over on the other side in our sister campus, over in Levittown, and his name is Mr. Surge Badu. And he's done here, and he's some lovely stuff for us.
All right.
Just one question.
Sure, please.
For the Python thing, what happens if it says that the Python name is the error?
Python name is the error. Let's take a look.
The error is coming at
Yeah.
on the 6 on 3.6 Python.
Yeah.
You have to hit file new.
Oh, well, this should be part of your code. So this is your shell, right? So the way I usually do it, even though you can write your programs in shell and directly execute them, the way I don't know how the rest of the class did this, but you can open essentially idle. This is a text editor. Okay, that's how I find it easier for me to Antimalware, and then we will replace all the shell ones. So now to save it, let's save it on your desktop. It's called Lab 1. And now you can run it. Okay, now task generator is not defined. Let's take a look.
Does the same thing.
You said,
Okay.
Yeah.
This is line password.
iOS on that.
Join. What? So just so far.
I'm like the firmware of that.
Okay, response should be response from line 13.
But then you also have to know how to write it.
So this is the response.
Yo, is else a single tab?
What?
Okay.
Else is a single tab.
Thank you.
Okay, so all of you, I understand most of you did not have much programming experience.
Same with print?
So this,
Print is 2.
yeah, so this program in Python gives you a little bit of a glimpse into Python programming. Any other questions before we continue? No? All right. So what we will do now is we will do another lab just to finish all the hands-on material now. We'll do another lab, which it's much easier right now. Does not require you to program so much as in the first one. So yeah, so this is lab number 2. Please go to this URL, codebashing.com/SQL_demo. And this lab is about SQL injection. So essentially the tutorial there will walk you through vulnerable code, and then how to correct it, how vulnerable code can be exploited, and then how to correct it. Okay, and I'll also walk and make sure you get help. Certainly, please. So this shouldn't take more than 15 minutes. 10-15 minutes should suffice. Let's take that time, finish that lab. If you have any questions about SQL injection, if maybe you didn't get that part as we were going through the first part of the lecture, please raise your hand and ask a question, and I'll try to explain, and then we'll continue with the rest of the theoretical material.
So go to that link right now?
Yeah.
All right, cool. That is what I want. Underscore, just underscore. Oh wait, I'm giving myself an SD.
It's an exercise.
Oh, okay.
It's not real.
It's not really going to give my computer an SD. All right.
And only websites are vulnerable to SQL injections.
Got it. So it's like a booster shot, but it's not real. It's like injecting yourself in hepatitis vaccine. Getting hepatitis. It's just an exercise.
How do you test this? No.
The first stage.
Laziness. Yelling.
Yeah, just listen to it.
Huh?
Read that.
I'm reading it.
Could you keep it in next? Next. Don't exit it out.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
All right.
Next. It's supposed to open up the side for you.
Oh, I saw the sandwich. Yeah. So I wasn't just leaving it there. Yeah.
I don't know. Oh, they don't. You have it open. Stays kind of open. Oh, yeah. You click the edges and everything. That's why. I have it all right.
S, not a Suze.
Yeah, I got it.
Too late now, dude.
Yeah.
No, it's just Denver.
Yeah. I like it.
We have video on that computer right now. So we go try to get video. Okay. Oh, I get your video. I can also do it on mine. You got to two seconds. I can also do it on mine. All right. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. I was actually just getting it.
Jacob, this is stuff you do every day, right?
Not Python.
No, on the site that was.
SQL Injection.
Yeah.
I don't use SQL Injection like every day. Like, it's for hacking websites.
For hacking.
Yeah, like I do like database, but I don't do like input on websites. So that's not good.
Oh, well, you know what I realized? You're not even up to the one time.
Oh, like is there a certain point?
Yeah, hit back to login.
That's why.
In the middle of your screen, the light.
Are you on the same thing I am, like the SQL Injection?
I just moved on to the next page.
Oh, how do you do that?
In the middle, you see the little red button? It's like back to login. Yeah, and then at the bottom, that's what you do, right?
Yeah.
This one?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Alright.
Do you know channels?
No.
It says slap all.
Trying to get 3 credits. Yeah, fine. Can you get on Classroom? Can you get on Classroom?
No, it's, I can't, I'm pretty sure it's the same application.
Just point and pretend you're showing
This one,
something.
right?
Yeah.
You can't hold that.
That's what you did.
I want to see that behind me. I didn't realize you were just standing there like
It doesn't give you the username again. It doesn't show it again.
Oh shit, so I screwed up.
Was it Alice, I think?
No.
Are there more?
Yeah. Alright.
He just sounds like that in school.
alright.
Yep, that's one.
that Alice's email and password values are contradictory. Thank you, baby. Cat. Thank you, baby. I'm sorry. Thank you, boy.
Thank you so much.
Go.
Sorry.
I can't say that here. I can't say that there.
Take main seat.
Joe,
Yes, sir.
call him on.
Sorry.
Doing SQL. Good job. Pretty good stuff. Injecting, you know.
From 500.
I haven't played that, so.
Don't level up though. My shit's the spicy.
Don't move.
Yeah, don't level up. It makes it worse.
Is there a trick to use this?
Then again, it took me 2 hours to beat the last boss.
Oh my god. 2 hours to beat the last boss?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
That's ridiculous.
It was fun though.
Sure, you can get through a big chunk of a game in about.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy 8 though.
I love that game. What? It's like Devil May Cry 4. You have to go through 100 stages. There's just count game and all the other things. On each stage, if you die, you go back home.
And I would be on 99 and just
Talk about the 100. There's a dungeon in Final Fantasy 5. There's 100 levels.
like one combat.
Yeah, but you want my tape.
Yeah,
But you know how long? But Travis, do you know how long it was?
No.
About a half an hour. Nope. Nope.
I don't know.
I got that right. When I hold on this, can you make sure I'm yeah. Just make sure I'm spelling it correctly.
Oh, yeah. He's my friend.
Alright, let's save it now.
Is there a
I will
comma?
save it on your desk though.
I don't know. I keep trying to do the same thing. It's not working.
So I had it was just one time. Huh?
Well, I actually had to fix the tech.
Here's the password.
And now it's
What's that thing? Got
I thought the username was Alice.
It is. Go ahead, type it out.
No, I screwed up.
That was so cool. Thank you a few times.
Get it?
So cool. Plus, you were right about that.
Which one are you doing?
I
did want to say
And then you have to put the
different shell.
quotation.
Alright, maybe we should just recap the second lab first. So, please raise your hand if you haven't finished the second lab yet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, hold on. Let's give another couple of minutes. Okay, so another couple of minutes.
through that and then launch
TL's typing yesterday. It's typing the way that it should be.
Hey James, do you like TLC? I watched the other guys last night.
Yeah.
Oh, so more?
All of that.
Are there more?
Okay, maybe I can start asking some questions about SQL injection, just to make sure you understand the importance and the essence of the second lab. So, what is SQL?
It's a statement.
Script query language.
Say it again.
Script query language. Or query
Script query language, yes. And what is it used for?
Database.
Databases, yes. So we access the databases. How does what's the vulnerability of SQL injection? How can it be? How can people exploit the vulnerability of SQL?
You're able to disrupt like the command line, and then put in the characters that it was used to determine where it's going to direct you.
Okay, okay. So usually SQL injection is part of the. It usually works in conjunction with the internet, with websites, right? So. In the websites, there is forms. There are forms on the web pages, right? And people expect that that users will type certain words in these forms or check certain checkboxes, select maybe from drop-down menus, and then this information is sent to the server for processing, right? But what in your cases of SQL injection, what exactly did you type there? Did you type an expected, anticipated input, or was it unanticipated, right? Unanticipated. And what exactly did you type there?
A bit of SQL code.
Exactly, exactly. Instead of typing regular words and selecting your favorite foods or whatever was asked for, you type SQL code, and by doing that, you can completely destroy or modify the data that that resides on that server, right? And thus you can change all the values. And as an example, on one of the previous slides that we looked at today, we could change all the deliveries in the orders table from Levittown to Medford, or from Medford to Levittown, one of them, right? So we could completely change everything where merchandise will be delivered, right? Any questions on SQL injection on the Python lab or anything else before we move on? Can we move on? Are there still many people working on? You're still
He
working?
didn't find the password, but yeah, continue.
Okay, maybe after the lecture.
That's fine.
Okay, all right. So let's move on. So let's look at now the defenses. We talked about threats. We talked about SQL injection, password cracking, Trojans, and other vulnerabilities. Now let's look at the defenses. How can we defend computer systems against these vulnerabilities, against the cyber threats? So we'll look at the anti-malware, what's used to be called antivirus, now it's called anti-malware. We'll talk about firewalls, security vulnerability scanners. We'll touch upon encryption, and then talk about web forms again, where SQL injection comes to place, and security vulnerability assessments. And we'll talk also about, after that, about the industry of cybersecurity. So what is anti-malware? Anti-malware is what you are usually know as antivirus. Why is it not called antivirus anymore? Because it's not just viruses. By technical definition, it's not just viruses that these programs protect you against. They protect you against much more than that, against all kinds of worms that can replicate themselves and work independently of the user actions, do not necessitate user actions. So the new word for this is anti-malware. Here are the major companies that create anti-malware software or services, provide services. So Symantec, Kaspersky, and others, McAfee. I think AVG has free versions. Some of them have even free versions that you can download and install. So newer forms of anti-malware also use machine learning and monitoring to anticipate threats. So in the past, the way it worked, people at Symantec or Kaspersky, what they would find a new virus that just appeared in the world, and they would create a program that essentially neutralizes this virus, and then they will automatically update your antivirus software to look for this code and neutralize the virus as it is identified. Now it's much more sophisticated, as I said. There is machine learning involved, and essentially programs can adjust on much more sophisticated basis. Firewalls. Let's talk about firewalls. So firewalls are also used on private computers, but mostly on enterprise computers. It's essentially hardware or software that is installed on the entry point to your network. So here's your network, and the home network, and the enterprise network, such as Hunter School. And on the entry point, you install a firewall. So firewall works on, and then you can have to configure. If installation itself isn't sufficient, you have to configure. You have to essentially define policies of what IP addresses are allowed, what destination port numbers are allowed, and what protocols. So IP addresses, everybody knows what it is, right? It's an identification of the resource on the internet. Port numbers. A port number is essentially the entry point to a specific IP resource, IP location. So IP address can be one of the addresses that we use today for the exercise. But on the same IP address, on the same server, on the set of servers, you can have several services running. You can have HTTP service for web pages, for websites. You can have FTP service for file transfer protocol to send files back and forth. You can have SMTP for mail, right? So it's all on the same IP address, all on the same server, but different ports, essentially different entry points. I usually give an analogy of a house. You have a house, and our typical homes, they have 2 or 3 doors that you can come in, right? Guests go through one door, people who live there go through another door, dog comes out of the 3rd door, right? So same house, same IP address, different ports of entry for different purposes. So that's how you configure a firewall, and it can have additional features such as packet filtering, intrusion prevention, and detection. These are the major manufacturers of the firewall: Juniper Networks, Cisco, Check Point, Palo Alto. Okay. Intrusion detection and prevention software. So there are 2 major groups, the detection part and detection and prevention. So you can configure just to issue alerts when certain abnormal activity is identified, or you can configure the software to neutralize this activity by, for example, blocking certain IP addresses, or blocking certain ports, blocking certain protocols. Okay. It can also block packet components. So the major companies that create this software are on the right of the slide here. Again, usual suspects like Check Point, Cisco, and others: Juniper, IBM, McAfee, and so forth. So these companies generate IDS and IPS solutions. Yes.
Why would you not have it prevent?
What is the point of having it just detect and not?
Well, sometimes you want just to send an alert, and I think there's also a sophistication of the program and pricing of the program that comes into place. But sometimes you want to just an alert to a network administrator and have them decide what prevention technique to take, because there are many false positives, right? So there's many times that the alert will be generated, but there's nothing wrong. For example, let me give you an example. Today, before this exercise that we did in Python 1, I called the network administrators, actually filed a ticket, the network administrators of the servers which you were hitting with this password cracking program, and I notified them that there will be abnormal activity on Friday, and just let them know, right? So if they had maybe, and I know one response I received was we will put a comment there so that we don't react to this activity. So in this case, if they had prevention service, your exercise may not have worked. If I didn't notify them, they didn't react to that. Okay. Encryption. So. Of course, cryptography is a very ancient art, and there are multiple encryption algorithms in use today. Here's, for example, an example from pretty good privacy software. This is a scrambled message, which essentially means come on over for hot dogs and soda. Okay. PGP scrambles this. It's usually used for encrypting your data on the computers. So I don't know about the computers in this classroom, but in many cases, do you have a question? Oh, no. Okay. In many cases, the corporate computers would be encrypted so that people cannot, if they get access to the data, they cannot, without decryption, they cannot figure out what it is. There are several encryption algorithms. We will not go into details of them, but I just wanted you to be familiar with the names. They usually use keys, right? One common thing here that you will see between these names is that they usually use some types of keys. And the keys can be different in length. So 56-bit key to a 256-bit key, and so forth. There is also a symmetric and asymmetric approach of encryption. Sometimes it's symmetric, where the same key can be used for encrypting and decrypting the data. And then there is asymmetric algorithm when different keys are used. One just for encryption, another for decryption. So even if you have one key, you cannot work both ways, encrypt and decrypt the data. Okay. In conjunction with encryption, and specific for the web, one of the most common techniques is used secure socket layer, or SSL, secure socket layer. Usually, if you see an address which starts with HTTPS, instead of just HTTP, you have HTTPS. This means that it is encrypted using SSL. Okay, let's look at how it works. So every banking, if you go use online banking, of course, you all go through HTTPS. And all the data in transmission is encrypted. So if somebody intercepts the data on the network, they can't figure it out. They don't know what it is. But let's how it works. It's not straightforward. So let's say that this is your computer and this is the bank, right? So first of all, you issue a request to the bank to show my balance, for example, right? Well, the first would be login, but let's skip that. Let's say show my balance. And the first thing that the server does is sends you a certificate, and it's public key. So what does a certificate mean? Certificate means that this server tells you that I am the Bank of America, okay? That this server, this IP address is the Bank of America. And then it sends you the key. We'll talk about the key in a second. So your computer, the way SSL works, does not trust the bank that it says it's the bank. It goes to certification authority, and these are the several certification authorities which issue such certificates, and it validates the certificate. Is this really the Bank of America? All right? So assuming, let's say it was Symantec or Komodo, it says, yes, this server, this IP address is the Bank of America, because they, before they issue the certificate, they validate. Okay, they validate that you are indeed the business that you are saying you are. So the bank says, certification authority says, yes, this is the Bank of America. Now, the client, your computer, your browser, generates a random key and then encrypts it using the public key that they received here. Okay? So now the client generates the key that will be used for this session. So if I access it and you access it, the keys that will be used are different. They will be encrypted with the same public key, but they're different.
I'm sorry. So this is like dealing with just like communicating with servers.
Yes.
It's not like because I just immediately thought of DHCP for some reason. I know that's more like with web. I'm talking.
Well, no, DHCP, yes. This is assignment of IP addresses right on the network.
But this is just more towards the servers. That's what the.
This is encryption of data that goes between the client and server.
Okay.
Yeah, this is about encryption. Yep. But thanks for asking.
No problem.
So we are on step 4 here. The client generates a key that it encrypts using the public key of Bank of America, of the server. And now, step 5, now finally you can get the balance. Send data back and forth, and it will be encrypted and decrypted using the same symmetric key. Okay, so every time you see HTTPS in some URL, this is how it works. Yeah.
What does the size of the key do?
Size of the key is complexity of the encryption and essentially the difficulty with which it can be decrypted.
So the larger the key, the part of the encryption.
Yeah. Yes, because nowadays with the large processing power, you can decrypt many of the even encrypted communications. You can still decrypt.
Okay, so the server sends a certificate and the client authenticates with the certificate authority, but like,
yes.
Where is that?
Where is what?
The certificate authority.
Oh, these companies. So it goes to one of these companies. They have a URL as well, but these are only a handful of companies that do that.
Okay, so like like a form of attack would be like someone able to like spoof that?
Yes, theoretically, yes. Somebody could spoof the communication and somehow find the key or crack the key, which is theoretically possible as well. But if it's encrypted using 256 bits, it's very, very difficult and time-consuming to crack it. Yeah. Any other questions on SSL? Because we're all using SSL when we communicate with our banks and Facebook, anything, right? Where we send private data. Okay, another form of defense against malicious use of online resources, of websites in this case, is called CAPTCHA. What is CAPTCHA does, it is used to detect whether the person behind the internet browser is actually a person or a robot. Okay. So how does it do that? So it looks like this approximately. There are different types, but it looks like something like this. And these are characters which are kind of scrambled a little bit. We humans can figure out what this means, but for software it's very difficult to figure out what exactly these slanted letters mean, right? So many times you will see a CAPTCHA widget on a form before you can log in or register. And this is to prevent pretty much what you have been doing in Lab 1, because in Lab 1 you were just sending random passwords to the URL, right? And for this was a computer program that was doing it. If it was human, and every time you can log in, you have to figure out what it says here, type it in here, right? That would be much more difficult. It's very difficult to automate such a thing, because it's very difficult to decipher what this means programmatically. Humans, again, can do this. But here's how it technically works. This is your browser. This is the website. And this is called a session, which kind of stores information between different requests. So you are asking for a page. You type in the URL. You're asking for a page. And what happens on the website, it creates this widget, and specifically this value. Right? This value is randomly created and scrambled for every user. So it's all individual randomly created, right? And it also stores in the session, the web server stores what exactly generated. So let's say here it said server maybe, or center face. Okay, so center face. So this will be stored in your session and sent back to you, to your browser, in the form of an image. So now you submit your username, password, and you have to type in what it says here. So you submit it again to the website. it's HTTP protocol, it's stateless, so the website doesn't remember who you are because it's a second request, right? It could be a minute later, it could be 2 hours later. But it goes to the session using a session identifier and gets the information that is stored here. And the session says, yes, the capture value is center face. So the website compares what you typed in with what the session says, right? And if it's both, if they're equal, then it lets you in. It knows that you're human. If they're not equal, it doesn't let you in, even if you put correct username and password. All right? So it validates your input based on this scrambled characters. Yes?
If the computer has trouble deciphering the scrambled characters, how do they make the scrambled characters?
Well, okay, good question. So you first of all, you generate random characters, two random words. Generate 2 random words. And then using graphics software, you slant them or change pixels here and there. So since this computer converted these words into graphics and using some algorithm slanted them, right? This computer, the user computer, like workstation like you have here, does not know exactly if it was slanted to what degree and what pixels were moved. So it doesn't know how to read this image, except for just displaying it. But since not many pixels were moved, and the degree of this slant is not too difficult for us, for human eyes to discern, that's why we humans understand kind of what it means. But for computers, it's
sometimes I can't even read it. I have to press a different one.
Yeah. Sometimes they're so scrambled it's even for human eyes it's difficult to read. You're right. Okay. So this is how capture works again to prevent robots from trying passwords over and over again, like exactly like you did in
Is that
Lab
the
1.
same premise as the ones that you have to pick out, like the cars and the
Yeah, well, you have to pick up the cars. I think this is a very smart move, but I think Google uses that. Maybe others do. They actually use us, the users, to sort the images. They will show us like 9 images, right? And ask where the cars are. We will say these are the cars. And then it's necessary for some purposes. Then this input goes somewhere, and maybe we didn't select all of them correctly, right? But if it's still, being humans, we definitely had some greater degree of correctness, of truth. So now that they need these images for some things, for some other purpose, they know that these images, most of them will be cars, because that's what people select. And so this is a very smart move by Google.
Like they take normal photographs and just like put them in smaller boxes and then say which one is a sign and which one is a car.
Yeah, exactly. And this is not just to authenticate, to differentiate between humans and robots. This is also to sort the pictures for whatever other purposes.
Before this was put into place, my brother coded a program that would automatically enter him into sweepstakes. He won a cruise, a couple grills. He would just boom, next one, boom, and fill in all of his information. Boom, next one, just keep doing it. Worked out pretty well until this came out.
Okay, all right. Yeah, sometimes I know in my past we just put a mathematical equation, just figure out what is 5 plus 7, right? And since this was random, sometimes plus, sometimes it's actually we did it in words, 5 plus 7 instead of and so for computer it will be a little bit more difficult to figure out what exactly is anticipated, but then we would compare the result with the real value of the calculation and see at least is this likely to be human or likely to be human or machine. But yes, pretty much every serious bank or something like this, they will need a capture on the registration form or some other form of authentication. Maybe they will send a text message to you to authenticate that this is you, or things like that. They cannot just trust these traditional 2 fields of username and password. This is no longer a good protection measure. Okay, so it's of course much more difficult to create a comprehensive defense strategy than to create an offense strategy, because in offense you just need to find one point where one vulnerability, one point, and you can use it and then essentially breach the network or the website. In defense, you don't know what the attacker may use, so you have to pretty much cover all your bases, all the IP addresses, all protocols, be always up to date on patches and things like that, and monitor the network. Make sure that the behaviors are, the activity is normal. So let's reiterate what we discussed. So firewall, of course, for all organizations, and if you become network engineers, you will definitely need to deal with firewalls because that's what protects the enterprise from unwelcome traffic. Of course, secure configuration of hardware, software, where it's the right balance of still letting people do what they need to do, but at the same time preventing unauthorized use. It's a delicate balance because you can always, configure it such that it becomes unusable. Very secure, but unusable at the same time. User access control permissions, so people can only access what they're allowed to access, everything that they need to access, but nothing more than that. So again, fine-tuning of what can people do, what data they have access to, what programs they can execute, and so forth. Malware protection using the software we discussed, and of course timely patch management. Many of the case studies that we discussed today were as a result of delayed patch management. So for example, operating system vendors such as Windows would issue a patch, but companies would delay installation of this patch, and as a result, malicious users can gain access. I think Equifax, the recent security breach with Equifax, I think was a result of essentially Equifax network administrators not patching their systems in a timely manner. They just delayed this, and as a result, I think all of us have credit history, right? Now it's all out in the wild with Equifax. Okay. Now let's look at the IT security industry. We'll talk about market size, job roles, what ethical hacking is, and some certifications. Since you're all students and pursuing some degree of computer skills, this could be very helpful information because this industry, as I explained earlier, is growing and tremendously growing. So let's look at the spending on IT security. So this is from Gartner for from 2012 and projection into 2026, and look at the, first of all, the overall growth, right? This is in billions of dollars, but also this is the in dark blue. What you have here is people that work for specific companies, right? So this is the staff of corporations, and this is all consulting. This is all temporary employment or projects, essentially. So the consulting part is projected to grow much more than people who are permanently hired to watch over security. Okay, so this is a very promising career. I think you have figured that out by now. But it's definitely worth exploring if you're interested in this field.
So the light blue is more like temporary, though? Yeah,
these are consultants. Yeah, these consultants to, for example, for checking the intrusion, right? For the vulnerability of the network. So they would come for a few months, try all kinds of penetration testing, and then generate the report, right? And then based on this report, the enterprise
move on to another place.
Yeah, they will move on to another place. Okay. Okay, let's look at the. Sorry, no, this is back. Yeah. Major cybersecurity roles. So, if you are pursuing a career in cybersecurity, these are the major roles that you can kind of target. Of course, the top is Chief Information Security Officer, CISO. This is the C-suite position. Then there are others like Audit Manager and Auditor, where you do an audit of the networks and applications. There is Security Incident and Alert Manager, Responder. This is reactive ops. If something happened, what to do now, right? How to react to this? How to restore the network? How to bring back the applications to neutralize the danger? But then there is proactive operations, and this is probably most of the Most of the work goes into network administration. This is setting up the security for policies, configuring the firewalls, access administrators, providing user access on adequate level, and security analyst, just a general term for security analysis and providing recommendation. And there is this interesting profession that's called ethical hacker. So essentially, that's why the corporation hires people to try to hack their systems. And if you ask me, I think this is the most fun. That's where most of the fun is, because you're hired to break into something. People pay you for that. Like, it's like playing games and being paid at the same time. So, but there is a profession like this. People hire people. This is probably more on project basis. It's probably not permanent, but consulting people may have a permanent position for this role. And then there are specialists, anti-malware specialists, cryptologists, cryptanalysts. Okay, but roughly this is list of professions that you may want to pursue.
What is let me ask you, like when it comes, I know like we're all going for most like A+ certification. When it comes to going into cybersecurity, is there different certifications?
Yeah,
that's
we'll
what you
talk
just
about
like literally said, wasn't it? And I zoned out.
Yep. Yeah, there is a certification. We'll talk about it.
I'm sorry.
CISSP.
Yeah.
But we haven't gotten to that yet. So this is if you're trying to think of financial, what is the financial reward, remuneration for security specialists? Of course, this is CISO. Data comes from Forbes. It's last year, but this is a good six-figure salary. Obviously, as we have learned earlier today, with all the losses that many corporations have from cybersecurity threats, they're willing, of course, to pay good salaries to security specialists and CISO accordingly. So this is data from different cities in the United States. Take a look, but New York is highlighted. Now let's talk about ethical hacking. So ethical hacking, there are certain prerequisites. And by the way, there is a certification for ethical hacking as well. But what are the prerequisites? So first of all, you need to gain permission to ethically hack something. You have to ask if you can do that, right? So you have to get permission. Second, you have to, of course, preserve the privacy, not put everything you find there for everybody for the world to know. So privacy is the second pillar of ethical hacking. You cannot leave anything open. So let's say you found some vulnerabilities, you have to report them. Or if you had to open something for the purposes of your activity, you have to make sure it's closed back. So you cannot leave the network open after you are done. Okay, and you have to let the company that you are ethically hacking. You have to know them of any security vulnerabilities that you have located, right? So you cannot just keep it to yourself, knowing, okay, I found something, so I'll just keep it to myself. I will, maybe use it somehow later. No, you have to let them know what you have found. If you were hired, of course, they pay you for that. But even if you have not been hired, if you do it on your own, you still need to let them know what you have found. You can explore the certified ethical hacker certification. This is kind of quasi-official, but still there is a council of consultants that you can look at the criteria and actually get a certification. Right. This is for ethical hacking. We'll talk about CISSP in a moment. Okay, now this is more formal certification, CISSP, and this is led by the International Information System Security Certification Consortium, and this is the industry standard recommendation. Okay, the ethical hacking was kind of less official, but this is the official certification for security specialists. So, if you want to pursue a career in cybersecurity, I would definitely recommend you take a look at this certification and try to pass it. There is, of course, literature to prepare for it, for exam. The exam is, it follows like regular IT testing procedures. So You have to have some educational work experience. Then you register at Pearson VUE. This is a company all over the country that runs tests. It's all computer-based tests. Nobody will interview you personally. You have to pass the test, and then you have to put your signature on code of ethics and things like that. So probably the most difficult is to make sure you have educational work experience and actually pass the test. Like any network or Windows certification, the Microsoft certifications, I mean. Same process. Nothing unusual here, but this is definitely something to pursue if you are looking into career in this field. And this brings us to the video that I wanted to share with you, so that you can listen to people from a cybersecurity conference, professionals in the field who are also talking about this profession and different aspects of it. So,
You're ready to play?
Yes, let's try to play it. So I can. Okay, you're taking over.
Just want to make sure.
Okay, please do.
There's no feedback to the sound. Go for it.
Well, not this. Let's. It's in the.
No, they're doing that. They're in the team view.
Okay, so
there you go. Go back. Now you put it back. Go to. Now you move the mouse. Yep.
Okay. So what we can do is. This should open the browser. Right? Perfect.
Just make sure the sound's up on the bottom right.
Bottom right.
Bottom left is on mute.
Yeah, the left. Sorry, the left is turned off.
Okay. Now, you can see pause button on YouTube.
And it quickly became our most popular video ever. We thought an update
I tripped
was in order to hear some new advice from more amazing cybersecurity professionals at DEF CON 24. Enjoy and leave us a comment below if you have anything to add.
Well, first of all, I would tell anybody interested in being in cybersecurity, please do it. We have a massive shortage of people today. And the thing is, there's a lot of great entry-level opportunities at companies where they're really looking for someone who's just curious, who's got maybe some pattern recognition capabilities, who's got maybe a modest technical background. But the key is, once you start that role, be curious. That is the most important advice I can give to anybody. If you start off as a tier 1 analyst somewhere, take some time to learn what the tier 2 guys are doing. Study every incident, go home at night, read books, read blogs, follow the people who are in the field, and I guarantee you that in no time you'll be advanced. In fact, I talked to a customer of ours just yesterday night at dinner, and that's a strategy he uses for his team. He tells them, you know what, I want you to, at some point be a very successful person in this field. I want you to build a career out of it, and the only way you can do that, it's up to you. And if you can take the time and learn from what you have and be curious, you'll go really far in this field.
I think there's a couple of different kinds of people that go into cybersecurity. There's the folks that really kind of set out from the beginning to be in this field. I don't know how much advice I have for somebody who already knows they want to do it. For somebody who doesn't know whether they want to do it, I think of being a hacker as a little bit like being a boxer. I mean, I could be out there getting into fights, but instead I can take what I know and apply it in this really interesting way, in a competitive and brilliant way where people get a chance to really enjoy what we all as a community get to do. So yeah, instead of kind of the street version of it, you get to take it and channel it into something that is really helpful to a lot of people.
I think one of the main things that you have to have if you want to get into information security field is a passion for it. It's like a lot of people see this opportunity now in the career, and there's like zero unemployment now. It's all on the media that you hear about it, and they're thinking, oh, I can make money at this. This is a good job, and then they burn out. It's like if you don't have a passion to try to get involved in this, and try to learn more, and constantly be on your toes, constantly learning new techniques and new threats that are out there and how to fix them, you're going to fail. It's like, it's just as simple, because the guy that you're fighting, the criminals that you're fighting, they're having a blast. They love this. They're doing this for fun and profit. So you have to have that same kind of passion and zeal to learn about it, to try to protect people and to protect companies that they have on trying to steal from them. So I think that if you're going to do anything, you have to want to learn and always keep learning. It's like to be good in this field.
What sort of advice would you give someone looking to get into a career in cybersecurity?
The best advice I can give is to go out there and experiment, right? The people that are interested in cybersecurity are typically going to be the people that want to tinker with technology, figure out how it works. So we always encourage them to make your own technology do things that you wouldn't expect it to do. Interested in cybersecurity, get some VMs on your own laptop and try and break into them and defend against them. go on the web and find some tools and run those tools and learn how they work. So there's so much that you can do just from a self-learning perspective that I always encourage that as the first step.
So for me, cybersecurity began by, interestingly enough, I was a computer science major as an undergraduate, had a math background as well, and I got interested in cryptography. And cryptography is sort of this basic building block in many ways within cybersecurity. And so I started off, I ended up going to graduate school, studying crypto in detail, and right after I graduated, I had a bit of an existential crisis, and then I realized that even though cryptography was this fundamental building block, even though it was mathematically interesting, it's not how people were breaking into systems. The reality is that most people were finding ways to bypass crypto through things like phishing messages and very simple mechanisms. And so I realized that if I really wanted to make a difference in this field, I had to expand my horizons and learn about a lot more than just crypto. But crypto was my start. I also spent a lot of time, when I was younger, hacking through Unix systems and Linux systems, basically trying to see what I could get access to. So the traditional mechanism of just being curious and building upon that curiosity over time is how I got started, and it's been a fun ride ever since.
I think that generally you will need eventually, depending on what level you get to, a CISSP, because folks will dismiss you if you don't have that in certain large organizations. And it's not right, but that's what happens. In terms of other educational backgrounds, obviously it's more so whatever you're passionate about. If you're driving towards, cybersecurity itself has become such a wide angle of fields that, I work with a psychologist who also hacks wireless. Would you expect that? No. I think that it's really about what you're passionate about and what you can use as an analogous framework for you to move forward and progress within your cybersecurity career.
I always tell people that when you're starting to get out, it's like paper is good. It's like I would not have gotten where I was without a CISSP. It's like, but after you get that and you get through HR with it, you then have to prove yourself. Do not rely on just having a piece of paper saying, this is why you should hire me. Be able to learn from those courses. Don't just take a course to get the certification. Take the course to learn from it. It's like, so I always say, it's like, get that learning from it, because once you've gotten that job, you're not going to have to, you have 3 months usually that you have to prove that you deserved that job.
So I think cybersecurity certifications are helpful for some people and able to kind of get a piece of paper that explains that they have a certain credential and they're able to use that to get a job. I don't think it's really necessary specifically in terms of the skills that you need, but I think it's always helpful to have for being able to potentially get your foot in the door in a key job opportunity. But more important than that is that you keep learning, because that's what your employer is going to look for, and they're going to want to see that everywhere.
It's good to look at on paper, because if you're doing things like consulting, it's always a paper trail. And if you lost your job, it kind of helps you get into the next place. So as far as security certs go, usually for beginners, having things like Security Plus is a good place to start. And I've heard that it's like a requirement for the DoD personnel. And then as you progress through the ranks, having a medium level people should have like a CISSP at least.
I don't think a degree or certification is required. I think that they're good in that they help establish a baseline, right? So if you're in a college course and you're taking cybersecurity classes and there's some great programs out there, that is great. And the certifications certainly help establish a baseline for expertise, and we can use to kind of level set across industry. So I always encourage people to pick ones that are important to them or meet their interest area. Is it ethical hacking? Is it incident response? Is it security program management? And find something that aligns with that and go and get the certification.
The field is changing so fast that if you're not always trying to learn, you're going to fall behind. So spend time looking at some of the key bloggers in the field, read some of the research reports they put out, look at the threat analysis. If you go to the Black Hat bookstore, you can find a ton of interesting books. Spend some time reading, and I think you can quickly come up to speed on all the relevant skills. But the beauty of this field is it's so new, anybody's got a chance to come into it and learn it really well.
The truth is that to really do well in this field, what you need is just curiosity. The Hacker's Manifesto says, yes, I am a criminal. My crime is that of curiosity. If you're curious, that's the education that you're going to get yourself no matter what.
Thank you for joining us for our Cybersecurity Careers video version 2. Do us a favor and leave us a comment below if you have any additional advice for someone looking to get into a career in cybersecurity. It could really be helping someone out. And if you haven't subscribed to Security Ninja TV, click the red subscription button below so you don't miss any of our future videos. I'm Alicia Webb.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our official part of the workshop today. I'll be here for another, I don't know, half an hour or so to help you with the labs if you haven't finished them, or answer any questions. Yes?
I was just curious. I was just curious, when you add letters into this
CAPTCHA?
Yeah, do you have to do it in such a way so it just doesn't go like A, B, C, D? Like, is there a certain way you have to do it? Because I still haven't, it's still going through passwords.
He's talking about the Python script.
Yeah, the Python.
The Python script. Well, it's, let me take a look at what you see on your screen so that I can answer your question.
So what I did was subset 4, I started switching the numbers around. So now it's looking through 7.
But did you want to add letters here?
Yeah, I'd like to add letters.
I could get like
You had 8 instead of 4.
Oh, so, okay.
Text didn't answer my text.
Huh?
To my text myself to be late today.
Never works out.
He answered my other. He texted him in the middle of text. Saying how he called him text.
So it takes some time.
Yeah, well, that's why I did controls.
Writing out the now what I want to ask you. Well, there it is. So if I want to
He was trying to hack the presentation. You're trying to hack the presentation.
You're on camera every sort of
You should have asked
So 1A, 2B.
You still haven't done it?
Well, that's okay. I still didn't find it.
Come on, it's so bad.
I haven't got it.
Never got it
Linux for all. Linux for everyone.
Not everyone's as good as you are.
You just type it word for word. Letter for letter, space for space.
Everybody quiet down for 1 second, please. Levittown is asking, what would be the hardest level of encryption to pass as an ethical hacker?
Hardest level of encryption to pass or to break?
To break, yeah.
To break, I suppose.
Well, to break again. To break as an ethical hacker.
That's a good question. Well, there are the encryption algorithms. Most the ones that used today they would be 256 bits for encryption, and they are practically non-breakable. Practically non-breakable. So we're looking at something older, right? That was used maybe in the past, but not in widespread use today. And then the second part is not that you as a hacker break the encryption, it's your computer resources, because you essentially write a program similar, to some degree similar in principle with what we did today, and try to run as many possible combinations to break the key, right? So essentially it depends on your computer resources. You need to have sufficient computing power to run all the possible permutations in reasonable time without waiting for years for it to finish, right? So it's not so much of your hacking level, but your ability to write any cracking algorithm and have sufficient resources, computer resources to just run your code on. Okay.
Thank you. I don't know what else. I'll be if there's any more questions. I know. Any more questions from anybody in here?
If you're writing a program to decrypt something, is there any way you can speed it up? Add keywords into it.
I'm sure, yes, I'm sure you can. You can do parallel processing, right? So this was very sequential. You try one password, you can run processes in parallel. So you can issue multiple threads of execution. That's one thing. As for specifically logic to decrypt something, I frankly don't know. So I don't know. But to speed it up, you can issue multiple threads, and then it will be working much faster. Yes.
If you wanted to go into like data recovery from like a criminal justice forensics angle, what type of these skills would you aim towards? You know, like what
this is specifically cybersecurity, right? So if you were talking about forensics for regular crime, not cyber-related crime, I'm not sure which.
No, but cyber crime, so the bad guys are going to give you a password.
Okay. Right.
So you have to be cracking the system to recover the data. Right. Pursue, prosecution. What types of skills would you?
Yeah, so definitely ethical hacking is very broad, right? So you use any possible vulnerability to hack. And then cryptography.
It's basically just a different way of reading.
Suppose that we use much of the data, especially any drives.
No, we were
criminal will be encrypted to some sort of fashion. You need to know how to decipher, how to decrypt. Through legal ways or maybe not so legal ways, but you have to do it. You need to know how to. That's right. Thank you.
I'm making sure you're doing it right. So far, so good.
So, alright. What would be the easiest way to get into hacking?
Easiest way to get into ethical hacking? Just be curious. Is these?
Well, I understand.
Yeah. So you just schools. Well, there is cybersecurity classes, of course, in many schools. So that's where I don't think you will find necessarily a hacking program unless they decided to call it that way. But if you go to any cybersecurity, you will learn all about all the vulnerabilities. And when you learn about these things, you learn both how to protect and consequently how to penetrate the system, right? Because you cannot learn how to protect without learning how to penetrate, or vice versa. So cybersecurity programs, depending on the length of the program, the quality of material, will teach you that, and then you use it either to protect or to ethically hack, to penetrate.
Because obviously I can't do that now on in school here, but I would like to start as soon as possible.
Yeah.
What's like learning it
Yeah, you can just take a look at what's available on Long Island or in the city. I'm sure you will find plenty of programs in colleges or in private schools.
Is there online ways to do it?
I am sure there are. I cannot recommend off the top of my head. But yes, there is everything, anything and everything online today.
Everyone's in.
Thank you.
With regard to his question, the PowerPoint has book references about what he was asking about.
Well, yes, the book this is another source, of course, the books, like online resources. There are only two books referenced in the deck, but there is a shelf that shows the books available, bookstores and libraries. But essentially, most of them will be talking about network because in terms of vulnerability, the vulnerabilities, exploits are changing, right? With the evolution of software, operating systems, the exploits are changing. But in order to put a program on the target computer, you need to find a way in, and that's where networking is your essential skill. You need to know how to breach the network. Then writing a Trojan is not a big deal. You can find plenty of tutorials of how to write a virus or a worm. But it's the ability to implant it on the another system. That's where the difficulty is, and that's where networking is your essential. And then it's essential skill to have. Okay. No. Or if you work in the cybersecurity field, to protect your network from attempts to implant some malicious code.
Would you say it'd be easier to practice on another physical computer in the same room, or a virtual machine on your own?
It doesn't matter.
Same shit. Okay.
All that matters is time. Because with a virtual machine, you're using half of your computer to run it.
Well, yeah, usually don't run anything really sophisticated. Yes.
How'd you get into this field?
Well, I'm actually from the, I'm doing IT architecture. I don't know, I only deal with security threats when they're part of the overall, for example, e-commerce installation, right? We install, configure e-commerce systems, and as part of that, you have to, of course, make sure that they are secure. But that's not my primary responsibility. I'm just a partial hobby.
Anybody else?
Make sure that they are going through the webinar. Ask Levittown, and then give them about 5 minutes to respond.
I can cut the feeds though.
You did already?
I can.
No, don't cut the feeds.
I'm waiting for the answer. I did send that. Anybody having problems with getting to what they gotta do, so you can help out while he's here? He's gonna be here for a little bit, and you guys get on.
Good.
Did everyone get the program to work?
I can't ask the first part of it.
There you go.
Wait, no.